Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay.
It has been weeks since we've talked, and I was saying this
It feels strange.
Yeah, it's the longest I've gone without talking to you since we started the podcast, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. So I'm happy to see you and hear you again.
I think aside from my wife, you're probably the person I talk to the most, generally speaking.
That makes
just because
me
of the
happy.
podcast,
For sure.
Coaches circle, like all the stuff.
Same here. And because we have a standing, honestly, I've no one else, well, you and Faith, but I talk to you probably even more than Faith because I think we have a few more things going on. And with Faith, we don't always do the podcast. So like, I have no one else where I have like this standing, we talk about, and I like it's a place for me to do the venting and the talking and the whatever about stuff that my husband's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Which, speaking of, one of those things that I've been talking about incessantly, and so has the world, is Venezuela and what has gone on. 2026 has already said, hey, 2025, hold my beer. Like, this year is off to a start.
It is. It really is. Yeah. I obviously saw that, not on the news because I've had, a month, but I saw it on social media for sure.
Same. Actually, my husband, this is maybe one of the only times that I can say where my husband broke news to me, because normally I'm scrolling social media, I'm listening to some of my news podcasts. I don't watch the news as much as I used to, but I'm generally pretty plugged in on what's happening. But I so checked out over the holiday end of year time that he actually told me, did you see that we invaded Venezuela and I took Maduro? And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? It felt so, even though we've been doing all the bombings of these ships, alleged drug cartel ships, for months now, and Trump's been talking about vaguely about Venezuela and Maduro and all of that, it still felt kind of left field. I'm like, wait, why are we at war with Venezuela? Like, what's, and it was
because
all
of oil.
Yeah.
Because of oil, Becky, because of oil. It's funny.
Well, I know why, but I meant like, why now, I guess, is more the question.
Why now? Yeah.
Yeah. It felt a little like, oh, new year, new war. Okay. I guess that's what we're doing. It was very strange to me.
Yeah, it was very strange. It's funny because like my wife was on social media and she saw one of the news headlines about the Venezuelan ex-president, I don't know what to call him, but dictator being tried here. And Mela was like, for what? We're not the International Criminal Court. Like,
and
why
if
are we
were, then why are we not trying our own president, let alone Netanyahu? And so,
like, we're not like a neutral ground to like hold that kind of trial for someone.
I saw that Pam Bondi, one of the charges was him being in possession of machine guns. And I was like,
what?
Right. And I'm like, then are we going to try all of the Americans?
Who have AK?
The whole thing is like, it's clear, obviously, it's like, we have a plan that here's what we want to do, which is we want oil. And I think potentially even more than that, like maybe even land grab. And we're going to devise a plan that makes it somehow justified, which, by the way, this is not new. This is
they've been doing this for
a
decades.
Wonderful American tradition, right? So it's not new to this president, but it does feel the thing that feels different to me this time and more uniquely Trumpian is the way we're just blatantly now saying, we're going to take the oil. We want the oil.
Yeah.
That is, in the past, we've done it. We've always done these horrible things, but we've been a little more like diplomatic about it. Right.
Yes.
And that
there's more political intrigue.
Yeah. All diplomacy, all politics has just gone out the window at this point. Now you've got the State Department tweeting an image that says it's our hemisphere. Like, as in, America owns the Western Hemisphere. I don't know if you saw
What the fuck?
Yeah, and that came from the State Department.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. This is the world we live in now. That we are, and this is now, he's calling it the Don Roe Doctrine, not the Monroe Doctrine, the Don Roe. So stupid. The man, like, it's all theater, except it has really terrifying consequences, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like if you're 90-year-old or 80-year-old dad or grandpa who sits around and talks, with a tinfoil hat talking about how America used to be good back when I was a kid, like all of that, like, and then we put him in charge. Like you can sit kind of in a way just almost giggle at like how absurd and caricature that grandpa
Yeah.
is until you're like, wait a minute, but now that crazy grandpa of mine has real power that
Mhm.
creates real
Mhm.
consequences, and it's terrifying. And this is one of the first times, I guess I can't say there's been so much going on, but this is like there's something about it that feels really, really heavy in a
Yeah.
way that a lot of other things maybe haven't felt like it on such a grand scale, I guess.
Yeah, well, it feels like a return to colonialism and empire and, like, expanding, uh, pro uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Expanding, not providence, fuck, I can't think of it right
It
now. I'm
doesn't
on my
matter.
second cup of coffee, and I still can't think
Good
straight.
for you. Well, it's perimenopause too is always there. Like I'm now just I blame everything on that. It makes life
Mhm.
easy just to say can't help it. It's which I think
Yeah,
most of the time it probably is.
yeah.
Well, and you say a return to
I don't think we ever
colonialism.
left.
Right, right. I was like, I don't know, but I think it's again, it goes back to that how blatant it is, right? In
Yeah,
the
yeah,
past, we've remained a colonial kind of a colonizing empire
yeah,
for the entirety of
yeah,
of the
yeah,
US's existence.
yeah. Puerto Rico, Guam, Hawaii, yeah,
Iran,
yeah,
Iraq.
the Middle East, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, just, well, and now I guess the difference is like with what Gaza, the way Trump talks about Gaza, and now with what's happening with Venezuela, it's just the blatant, it's like instead of pretending that we aren't colonizers, right?
yeah.
That
It's like, "Oh,
we're
no,
there to
this is
spread
ours."
democracy across the world or we're fighting
Yeah,
for freedoms for others. Like now it's just no, it's just this blatant no, we now want
we
to
want
own
it.
the Western
Yeah,
Hemisphere. It's
yeah, we
ours.
want it, so we're gonna take it.
Yeah, exactly. Is this just hit me, but it does. He is a rapist. We can use that
Mhm.
term
Yeah,
because the courts agreed and have actually
mhm,
said he cannot sue when people say he's a rapist because he was found guilty of rape.
mhm.
So, and it feels like that. It's that. It's that I
Yeah,
want you. I want this. I want this.
yeah,
I will take this.
yeah,
And when you have, this is what happens when you elect a rapist.
yeah. They just
That
take what they
rapist
want.
mentality, that control, that I
It's
see,
about
I
power.
take. Yeah, that doesn't just it doesn't get compartmentalized. A man who shows up that way with women will show up that way in all ways in his life. And he always has, even going back to property and land and the way
Mhm.
he has used people's labor, the
Yeah,
way he has treated tenants in all parts of his life. This is who he is. He's
yeah,
shown us who he is.
yeah, yeah.
So we can't
Well,
act surprised,
yeah,
but
well, it begs to be noted that, like, that's how capitalism works, right? You don't ask for permission, you don't, like, collaborate, you don't try to work with other people, right? The goal is to be on top, right? It's all about
no matter what it takes to
power
get there.
grabs, no matter what it takes, right? Increasing profit margins by grabs, by exploitation, by, treating your employees, not treating the land, not treating other companies well. There's that correlation, right, between capitalism, economics, and rape culture, geopolitics, and rape culture, because it's a very highly individualistic, toxic, individualistic kind of mindset that, like you said, it doesn't, you're one, like we are one, like you're one person, right? Like I'm one person, like he is one person. The way that you function, the way that you think about how to run your business, that bleeds over into how you run like how you interact with people, your interpersonal relationships, right? It's all you're one person. So no matter whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're out of the country, whether you're at the doctor's office, whether you're by yourself, those ideas, those mindsets, those beliefs like bleed into every area of your life. And this is why it's so important to like know who you are and know who you're with, right? Like make sure you know the value systems of the people that you're engaging with and like who you're like you can't be like, "Oh, I separate politics from everything else." Like somebody said that over the holidays and it was a white person and they were like, "Oh,
What a shock.
well, they always got to bring politics into everything." It was at a family gathering, so I didn't say anything because I was like, we were already going through enough. So I was just like, whatever, don't have it in me to get into this right now. But in my mind, I'm like, well, that's easy for you to say. Like, these politics affect me every day. they might not affect you every day, but they affect me every day. Like they affect the people that I care about every day.
Your
They
existence
affect
is
how
political.
they affect what happens in my business, right? Like things that impact how I have to run my business, how I'm forced to run my business sometimes. And so, and it's interesting because this was also a business owner who,
Yeah, but again, it's a white business owner
yeah,
who yeah, but
yeah,
hinting at our future series that we are still working on behind the scenes,
yes, we
everything
are.
is political because
Yeah,
everything is political. But what you said too about the not being able to separate these things, it makes me think, and I can't tell you who said it, but I heard once, and it's so true. How you do anything is how you do everything. And I think when you have more privilege, it's easy to not believe that, right? We start to
yeah,
think, "Oh, no, I can compartmentalize myself and it's
yeah,
fine." And it makes me think of like the white women, those 50 whatever percent of white women, 55% who said, "Well, I'll vote for Trump because I'm voting I can separate out these things. I'm voting to protect my financial interests, but it's not that I'm racist or that
yeah. Or that I want a rapist in
right,
office,
all of
but
these things,
you
but you
voted him in.
right, and how you doing things, how you do everything. So if you're willing to say, I can handle a rapist in my, leading my country if it protects my money, really means I can handle a rapist, if it means my black friend might loses
Yeah,
her job because we saw a record number of black
yeah,
women losing
yeah,
jobs this
yeah,
year,
yeah.
to no surprise.
Also, let's just stop at I can handle a rapist.
Well, exactly.
Like, you can handle a rapist doing what exactly? Like, what do
Yeah,
you want a rapist to be doing?
rotting in prison.
Not leading the country,
Well, at
like,
minimum, not leading the country, right?
right?
Yeah.
It blows my mind. Like, just like I think some of it is like willful ignorance, right? Like, people are just like, I just don't want
Yeah.
to think about it. Like, I don't want to have to deal with it. And I get that, that that sometimes it's like, I just have so much going on. I'm so stressed out. Like the world is a shit show. Like I just don't have the bandwidth. Like I totally understand that feeling.
In the same way that I don't wanna have to get engage in this fight at the family gathering, right? Like,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
times where we choose particular battles.
Yeah.
So, yes, I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. But I think also having the option to not choose that is sometimes a privilege. So sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is, right? And so we have to weigh like, okay, am I choosing not to engage in this right now because it's just going to make me uncomfortable and I just don't want to be uncomfortable and I want to like keep the peace and like not rock the boat, or am I choosing not to engage this right now because I quite literally just cannot, right? Like it's too triggering, so it's going to like escalate into something that's unhealthy or toxic, or are you just like at the end of your rope and just, really, really don't have the emotional or mental bandwidth, right? Is it not the right time? Is it not the right context? Like, and so there's so many like layers to like understanding that.
This is the problem for white women because we don't truly understand the difference. We have
Uh,
been so conditioned to believe that our discomfort actually is like being triggered, or our
yeah,
discomfort actually is overwhelm, exhaustion, burnout, or that our discomfort is a lack of safety. There are times where that may be true, right? There are absolutely times for white women when we are unsafe, right? Like that is absolutely true, especially as we're sitting here talking about rapists, right? Our physical, emotional, mental, like there can be actual true harm caused to us by engaging in certain situations. However, most of white women that I've experienced, and myself included before I had done a lot of work, and still probably sometimes, really don't understand how to parse that out and understand, is this actually a safety issue? Or is this just, I don't want to be uncomfortable because I've been so conditioned to not be able to sit in discomfort that it
yeah,
actually feels unsafe. But that
yeah,
isn't truth here. Like,
yeah,
if I can separate the truth is I could sit in this discomfort and still be safe. My safety, my privilege remains intact. And
hmm,
that's hard because for many white women, they really believe, oh, no, I can't engage in that conversation because it's not safe for me to do so. But what does
yeah,
that actually mean? What is that safety you're claiming?
yeah, yeah,
And so it's tough because a white woman will say, well, I'm not safe, because leaning again on that marginalized
hmm,
identity of womanhood without being able to fully understand and recognize the great safety that comes with
yeah,
being white, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that's
And
hard. Hard.
it is, and I think part of that is, like, being unfamiliar with that feeling of discomfort, right? Because so much of white culture, white American, at least Western culture, is about being nice,
And
right?
protecting
Like,
white women.
yeah, being nice, protecting white women, not rocking the boat, not, like, being non-confrontational, almost to the point of being passive aggressive sometimes. And when you're used to just like living in that kind of environment where you just like don't want to outright disagree or cause any like rifts or have any like direct confrontation, that feeling of having like of disagreement, it feels like a direct
Yeah,
confrontation, right? And
exactly.
I can speak to this, right? Because like I'm not a white woman, obviously, but my mom, um, like I grew up in, not just my mom, but like my family in general. Like I grew up in an environment where it was like you didn't disagree with adults. Like adults were always right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
A lot
understand
of
that.
people can relate to this, like, and then I grew up in that environment. Then I was embedded in a religious church culture where it was the same. You don't disagree with authority. Like you like blindly follow authority. And it wasn't
Cool.
literally until my mid-20s that I started to like learn how to disagree in a healthy way and like use my voice. Cause I remember I have memories of just like being at work and people asking my opinion and I would have no opinion. Like I couldn't even vocalize or formulate an opinion because I was so used to just agreeing with what everyone else said, just being the agreeable person in the room. And
Following along.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so anytime I was in a conversation and someone was genuinely asking what I thought or whether I agreed or not, like it did feel somewhat unsafe just because I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to people treating me that way. And so, but it only felt unsafe because it was unfamiliar, right? Not because I was literally unsafe. And so, yeah, there might be some level of nervous system dysregulation that happens when you're faced with something unfamiliar. But I think there's a like we have the cognition to be able to understand, right? That
If we do that work. You
yes,
understand,
yes,
right? Because again, so for white women, is it safe? Would there be a cost? Potentially, right?
yeah,
And sometimes we equate that
that's
with,
the
well, then is it
question.
not safe? But is the cost, can you pay the cost
Yeah,
and still be safe? And
yeah,
I think for many white women, they think, no, but the truth is, maybe
you
you
can.
can. You're just so not used to not having to pay a
Hmm.
cost, right?
Yeah,
Meaning losing some piece of privilege being taken from you, right?
yeah,
Or you ceding some piece of
yeah,
privilege. And that's really hard when you're not used to that. That's like,
yeah,
I don't know what that looks like. And I talk what you're talking about, like I think of as like good girl syndrome. And I think so many of
yeah.
us, we are very indoctrinated into good girl syndrome. Schools, I just read Original Sins by Eve Ewing over the break as well. It was fantastic. Totally recommend it. 10, 5 out of 5, 5 star, whatever book about the history, the racist history of education in America. And schools are just another example. Religion, family, and school is
Yeah.
another huge bucket, particularly public schools, but really all school systems, other than some of the more Montessori. There are some school systems out there that
Hmm.
are not necessarily about creating good quote unquote citizens, but
Yeah.
most schooling is about that same thing. It's about learning how to not question
Assimilate. Yeah.
authority, right? All of those things. So we get it everywhere. So of course it's hard to unlearn. And I continue to make mistakes. We will all continue to make mistakes. There are times where I wrongly assess safety versus discomfort and all of these things. And yet it's still incumbent upon me. It's my responsibility to continue to learn and to get more honest about, is there really a safety cost here? Or is it, I'm actually just being asked in this moment to cede some privilege,
Yeah.
to, to pay a cost that I'm not familiar with or that feels uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean it's not safe. And those are hard things to navigate, but it doesn't mean you get to opt out. Well, you
Right.
can, but
Right.
then how you do anything is how you do everything,
Yeah.
right? And if you're
Yeah.
willing to opt out here, then you're just as willing to vote for a rapist to be president.
Yeah. 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 Like they're hard to navigate, but it's not impossible to navigate. It's
Yeah.
a skill that you learn that you like teach yourself, right? Like anything
Mhm.
else. Like it's not necessarily something that is innate to us, I don't think, but like anything else, it's an interpersonal skill that is necessary. And so, whether it's, again, work, interpersonal relationships, politics, whatever. And so, this whole like Venezuela thing, like, which on its own is like super complicated, right? Because obviously, this person was a dictator. And so, it's like, yeah, obviously, nobody wants a dictator ruling over
Exactly.
other people.
which is what they're relying on
Right.
too, because then they can say, oh, so then you, and this is how, when we don't have nuance and we can't say both and,
Mhm.
it gets boiled down, and especially when you feel unfamiliar with the situation, right? It's a
Mhm.
lot like with Israel and Gaza,
Yeah.
and how people will say, well, then making it as simple as, well, then you are an anti-Semite, right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
if you're not familiar enough, it can be really uncomfortable because it's like, well, no, I'm not that, and I still see that this is really problematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I don't feel like I know enough, it's hard to sometimes engage. And here's the same thing of saying, oh, so you think there should be a dictator? Well, no.
Mhm.
And I don't think that we should be in the business of nation building, empire building.
Kidnapping foreign political leaders, regardless of how they got there,
Right. Destroying determinationism of like the
of
determinism
those
of the.
people. Yeah. Like, let
Exactly. So I can both celebrate the fact that there's not a dictator and recognize all of these other things. And
Yeah.
by the way, we are moving ever so close and really, for all intents and purposes, are there of having a dictator ourselves.
For sure.
So having one dictator remove another, is that a
Is that
celebration?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure I see how that is like I'm supposed to, yeah.
That's the pot calling the kettle black.
But it is challenging because, with anything, there's nuance, there's decades, centuries of history, and we can't. I do get sometimes a little frustrated with like online discourse where it's like, don't speak unless you are an expert on the subject.
Yeah.
The number of people who could be
Being
experts on
experts.
every region of like, no,
Yeah. It's
number of
very,
people who could be
very
experts on
small.
one region, let alone every region. And there was a lot of pushback from people who are Venezuelan saying, hey, Americans don't speak on this topic. And I saw a lot of really great women I respect, by the way, largely Black women, what a shock, who were very well versed in saying the piece around like, no, because this is my
Mhm.
country too.
Yeah.
And I get to have a say in what my country
My
does.
country is doing. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I have to understand everything about what's happening in Venezuela or the history of Venezuela, but I can certainly speak to whether or not my president is honoring my constitution, whether or
Mhm.
not my president is committing war crimes, whether or not my president is behaving in the way that represents the people he
Yeah.
represents. Like, these are things that we can speak to. So
Yeah.
if people push back on you, it's one thing to start to to speak for Venezuelans. That's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
different though than
That's
to speak for
problematic.
Americans in
Yeah.
the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes people don't understand that boundary,
Mhm.
right? Because it goes back to that thinking of it's all or nothing instead of like
Exactly.
there's this like liminal space in between that you can exist in where yes, you can talk about what's happening without having to politically or ideologically commit your own kind of like land grab, right? And try to like present yourself as an authority figure on Venezuelan geopolitics or speak for the people and be like, "Oh, they're liberated." No, they're not. They're still not fucking liberated. Like
And by
because
the way, as with anything, Venezuelans are not a monolith. Venezuela is
right.
a very large country. It's
Yeah.
about, I mean, it's a tenth of the size of the US, but that's not a small country. It's 30
Yeah.
million people we're talking about.
Yeah.
30 million people with different experiences and ideas. And many folks who are now in America who are Venezuelan because they've had a very large refugee situation happening over years now under Maduro, they have one perspective, but they're people
Mhm.
who are no longer existing inside of Venezuela, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't take away the fact that they're Venezuelan and very much affected. However, they have a different perspective than people who have continued to live in these very challenging circumstances
Yeah.
inside that country. And even within that, there are people who
Yeah.
support Chavez or Chavistas, and then there's people who don't. There's people who
Yeah.
liked Maduro, people who didn't, people
Yeah.
who remember times before dictatorship, people who don't. There is no singular opinion on what's happening,
Yeah.
even amongst Venezuelans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to try and reduce it to, well, you're not Venezuelan, so you can't have an opinion. One, you can still have an opinion on the overall situation, and particularly as an American
Yeah.
that's very involved in the situation. But then also, even Venezuelans don't have a singular opinion,
Opinion. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
reminds me of like how people sometimes talk about Cuba
Well,
and
and
Fidel.
we may be talking about that soon too, since we're apparently going to be taking it as well. It's on his list. We got Cuba coming, we got Mexico, Greenland. So yeah, the shopping
My
is apparently
God.
his shopping list. Like most of us have eggs, milk, bread. His is
Yeah.
Cuba, Greenland, Mexico,
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, yes, about Cuba.
Yeah, how people talk about Cuba and Fidel and, like, they approach it as such a black and white issue
Oversimplify
when
it.
it's yeah, completely oversimplified and it's anything but. Also, how people used to talk about Osama bin Laden and Afghanistan. And it's like, well, he was placed there by the United States.
And guess what's happening with Venezuela? If you do even minimal amounts of research, you will understand America's longstanding involvement in politics in
Yeah.
Venezuela, and the mirror images of what's happening with Venezuela and what happened with Iraq and Iran and other that area of the world. It's all there. I mean,
It's the
it's
same. Yeah.
our meddling, our getting involved, trying to achieve our ends. And by the way, this is not just Republicans. Obama was very much involved in all of this as well.
Mm-hmm.
He had
Mm-hmm.
his hands in Venezuela.
It's
So
the nature of our politics, of our political
exactly, like, and
system.
again, that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying, like, colonial. This idea of colonizing is what America was literally founded on.
Yeah.
We are a
Yeah. Yeah.
colonized
Yeah.
nation, and we have continued to repeat that pattern
It just looks
throughout
different
our
than it
existence.
used to
It's nothing
because,
different except, again, with just that the only difference now with Trump really is how brazen and blatant it is, where in the past we did try to at least wrap it up in a pretty bow that
yeah.
made us more palatable to the world.
Yeah.
Now we are less palatable to the world. And it is because, I mean,
That might be a good thing.
you know what, Taina? Yes, I'm scared. I'm terrified.
Of
And especially
course.
having a son who, I mean, we're still a decade away from him being able to be conscripted into the military. However, that's not that far. And
Yeah.
I think that's about the trajectory we're looking at here of this thing potentially, and maybe less, of truly a very terrifying World War situation with us as the bad guys, which is a
Yeah.
place that we have not thought of ourselves of having been.
Yeah.
We've been the bad guys in
We've
many
been the
ways.
bad guys.
But
Yeah.
I saw somebody on social media post that like World War II gave America a real inflated sense of itself as the hero, which is so true because in truth, Hitler learned his ways from America. So if you learn
Yeah.
much about
Yeah.
Hitler, like we are sort of we're
We're the
responsible.
inspiration.
We are the
We're
inspiration
the
for the
source
monster.
material. Hitler was the
Right, so it's like we
fanfic.
created the monster and then we went in and killed the monster, and now we only want the memory to be about the fact that we killed the monster, not that we created it in the first place, right? So it did create, like, I think Americans do have this false sense of ourselves as like the saviors, the good guys,
It's that
the nice and
manifest destiny kind of
exactly.
narrative. Yeah.
This is not that. Like, we are
Yeah.
siding with China and Russia and saying, "Hey, let's the evil three divide up the world, and these are our countries." And it's scary because Europe is scared. The
Mm-hmm.
amount of Europeans I'm seeing, like just everyday Europeans on social media, terrified with America, terrified of America, angry with Americans. I mean, this is a very quick turnaround from true allyship,
Yeah.
right? And this like we're all in this together sort of feeling, and they're gonna, I mean, this is gonna start more nuclear proliferation, not an
Yeah.
easy word to say, because now countries that have felt like they could rely on America to shield them are now feeling like we have to catch up so that we can shield ourselves from America, and that
Yeah.
is scary. And as
That's
somebody with a
scary.
child who could end up being pulled into into military conflicts, scares the fuck out of me. All that to say, and Diana, I also there's this big part of me that thinks this is kind of where we have to go.
Yeah.
America is, I think, having its last gasps as
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. Someone got angry with me on social media saying America and calling myself an American because America is a large chunk of land that does
North
includes.
American. Yeah.
And there's South America who are also Americans, but they're South Americans,
Yeah.
and I'm a North
Yeah.
American. But like, I was like, I don't know what to call myself. We don't call ourselves United Stasians, but like,
Yeah.
okay. So it's a little complicated. I could see
Yeah.
the challenge there, but also I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally, I've never heard anyone call themselves anything but an American if they're from the U.S. So I don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, and yeah, like I'm scared, but I also think this is sort of the inevitable end to an experiment like America, the U.S. Its founding and the trajectory and of capitalism and everything else. Like when you have to consume to survive,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't. There's no end to the consumption. At some point, you run out of things to
Resources.
consume,
Yeah.
or at least resources that won't fight back, right?
Yeah.
So you can consume resources like the mushroom that can't say anything. But at some point, when you've run out of mushrooms, you got to go fight the bull, and the bull's going to fight back. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at. And that's real scary. But also potentially, like you said, maybe it's what needs to happen. Maybe it's not such a horrible thing, even though
Yeah.
there's going to be incredible damage in the wake.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think it's a horrible thing and it's also not a horrible thing at the same time. It's because it's so blatant and so brazen, like it's a tipping point for other countries, other political leaders to make a decision, right, on how they're going to confront this, whether they choose to or not, right? And so before, it could be masked behind democracy and allyship and things like that. And so there was an easy way to just sweep things under the rug, but now there is no easy way to sweep things under the rug. And so I think what we really need to be paying attention to is how other world leaders respond to what's happening here, because that will indicate where the world is headed as a whole, right?
Well, I mean, the Netherlands have pulled out of the World Cup because they're going to be held here, and that's huge because Netherlands is a country that actually performs exceptionally well in the
Yeah.
World Cup. So
Yeah.
it's not like a small nation that was like, I never had a chance anyway. That was big news, and there's a lot of other countries considering the same thing,
Hmm.
Olympics as well, because happens to be a year where the U.S. is either entirely or partially hosting both of these giant events on the world stage.
Hmm.
Very interesting time. And so that's happened. And obviously, Greenland, which is Denmark,
Colony of Denmark.
a
Yeah.
former colony, still colony. I don't know. That's still unclear to
It's
me. It's its own,
legally, I think it's a former colony, but it's still
yeah,
ruled. Like it's
right.
still under.
They have their own representational government in Greenland. I mean, it's such a small country. The landmass is not, but the amount of people there is
Yeah.
exceptionally
Well, it's because
small.
it's mostly undeveloped, but they
Yeah, it's
still
like
answer to Denmark. Yeah.
smaller than most American, like, towns even, forget
Yeah.
about cities. But anyway, I think they do have their own representational government, but they are still associated with Denmark because it used to be a, like, true colony and now is still in some way associated. But anyway, the prime minister of Denmark, she's come out very, very clearly saying, "You will not ever take Greenland. You think you will, but you're not going to." And everyone in the EU and the UN will be supporting us in this. And so there's
Yeah.
already there's been some very clear pushback. Not to mention China, which is a different type of world leader, but has also said, "Don't if you mess with us, basically if you mess with the bull, you're going to get the horns. Like if
Hmm.
you mess with us, we will annihilate the entire world. We have
Hmm.
weapons that can we are the only country that has a hydrogen bomb, I think it was, whatever, that can take out the entire world. And
Hmm.
don't play with us, right?"
Hmm.
That kinda language from China, but also from Denmark, like, it's scary, and
Yeah.
it's making it clear that the world is saying, while the Trump administration may try to make Venezuela and what happened seem like no big deal, like, it was because what they're framing it as is, this was a police operation, it was just an arrest, we've arrested a really bad guy, nobody likes him anyway, we're gonna try him, and, like, that was all it was, despite the president then saying, "No, boots on the ground, I run the country now," right? Like,
Yeah.
so there's these mixed messages, but the people with sane minds are trying to frame it as just like like a military-backed police operation, law enforcement sort of thing. The world is not seeing it that way
Well, it's not because it's
because it's
happened
not.
in another country. If it happened in if it happened here in this United States, like they
Ooh,
might be able to get away with saying, "Oh, it's just a police like issue. We just arrested someone."
maybe, except did you see the amount of artillery that they went in with? If they did that in any US city to arrest somebody, there would be people on the streets and there are people on the streets protesting what happened
Yeah.
in Venezuela, to be clear. Like, even though the media does not cover it well, it is happening. But yeah, they would be fighting it. But I do think it's interesting because you just brought up a point I wanted to make sure we talked about quickly too, because I learned something and I want to be clear about that here too, right? Because there are still these moments where I continue to learn. One of the immediate aftermath of this on social media was people posting from other countries saying, well, if Sweden, if Denmark, if whoever, like all over the world, people were posting this. If we came in and took your president and first lady, under cover of night as a military operation, what would you do? And everyone's responses, including mine, were like, please do it.
Please
Sounds
do.
great, right? And saying it as a
Hypothetically
joke.
speaking, if you were to do that.
We're seeing it as the joke that it was, I think, intended to be and playful. However, I did see some indigenous folks who piped in to say, I know that you all are joking, but colonization's not really a joke to us, right? And so could you stop with the jokes around haha, colonization, isn't it funny? And the way
Yeah.
because a lot of them too were like pictures of the US with a different country's flag over it. Like if we came in
Mm.
and took your country. And of course I'm like, Denmark, where you guys have 52 weeks of parental leave and like universal health care. Yeah, come take our country. But I did because I participated in some of that until I saw some indigenous voices
Mm.
speaking up to say, let's not, even though I understand what this is, let's not make colonization a joke because it's
Yeah.
not, right? Like
Yeah.
it's had
Yeah.
extreme real world consequences in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it could be easy to say, whatever, lighten up, whatever, that kind of like defensiveness, again, going back
Yeah.
to that discomfort, because it did feel uncomfortable when I was like, "Oh shit, I participated in that." And like I can feel when I feel that discomfort of being kind of called in, it's like,
You get defensive. Yeah.
yeah, immediate. Where I want to
It's
be like, "Oh my
easy.
God, it was a joke, whatever." But then it's like, "No, listen, stop. Take a breath.
Yeah.
Listen, what can I learn here?" And I
Yeah.
deleted a couple of posts, not because I was trying to hide the evidence, but more like I don't want this out there. And they were just reposts and things like that, right?
Mhm.
And since then, I'm not participating in those kinds of things because I've learned
Yeah.
I did participate in it. I've discovered it was wrong. I didn't recognize how it was wrong until I had done it. And now I'm like, I won't do that anymore. So I just want to share that too as like a place of that messiness of like,
Mhm.
we're all,
Yeah.
we still make mistakes.
We're still making mistakes, still learning, still
Yeah.
learning.
Cause in my mind, it was like, I'm sitting here thinking, yes, please, Denmark. I would love to be like, I'm sitting here, honestly, I spend an inordinate amount of time right now thinking, how can I get another passport? And I
Mhm.
don't have a way of, there's no easy way to do that.
Yeah.
The people who say, "Just leave then," it's like, "Fuck off." I would love to. Tell me how
It's
that doesn't
hard.
involve
It's
being
hard and
rich.
it's expensive.
Exactly. If you're rich, great, and I see I
Yeah.
see a lot of people with means who are doing it. That doesn't work for my family, so tell me another option.
Yeah.
We did find out my husband's great-grandmother is Irish. Sadly, only grandmother counts to get. So we're like, "Damn," trying to find a way. But yeah,
You can't be
and some
grandmothered in.
literally, you can be grandmothered in. If you have a grandparented in to Irish ancestry, and you can get like, it's amazing. I love that they're doing that. And I just saw, by the way, just since we're talking about Ireland, last year was the first year they had no gun homicides in the entire country, not a
Mhm.
single gun homicide. So
Well,
would I like to move there? Yeah, that'd be great.
yes. Yeah.
Would I
Yeah.
like them to colonize us? In theory, yes. Having been educated, however, it isn't something to make light of because in the same way, really, it makes us no better than Trump, who keeps posting all of these images
Yeah.
of Greenland
Yeah.
with the U.S. flag on it.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
just perpetuating that idea, that mindset of just like somebody else come take over. And so,
right. When the truth is, we have to fight against what or against colonization. I mean, the indigenous folks were talking about land back and like this
mhm.
isn't about who gets to take it next, right? The
Mhm.
real answer is how do we give back? And going back to
Yeah.
that idea of privilege and the cost. It's
Mhm.
like, can we pay a cost? And I
Yeah.
I do feel like as much as it's scary about what's happening, this does feel like a cost. And there will be real safety
Oh, yeah.
prices, but it does feel like a cost that we do need to pay.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it is scary.
So much
Well,
so.
welcome to the new year.
Happy
So much
2026,
Right? So
bitches.
much for 2026 being way better than 2025. It's not feeling that way when literally the new year started off this way. I was like, oh, what a way to start the year. Could you not waited a little while to bring this? Yeah. But here we are. And it's only going
Here
to
we
get
are.
more heated, I think, as like seriously on the to-do list is Cuba, Mexico, Canada, Greenland. These are not small, nothing. There's going to be, do I
Mhm.
think they will happen? No, but I don't think it's without consequences that he
Yeah.
would try. I
Yeah.
think Cuba's the most likely of those on that list, but none of it's going to happen without consequence. And, Scheinbaum from Mexico's already also been very clear about like, no, you don't get to just come take
Yeah.
power.
Back the fuck off.
Right.
Yeah.
So be scary. But I will say next week, we already talked about what we're going to talk about next week. So we'll share that so that if you're like, oh, this was so depressing, maybe you'll
Next week
come
will
back.
be a bit lighter. Maybe
Well, maybe, but at least it won't be, well, I mean, okay, I shouldn't say
everything's
that either.
political.
It won't be geopolitical. How about
Yes.
that? So
Yes.
much. We're going to talk about sinners in one battle after another because I have finally seen them. You saw them both, I think, when they were in the theaters. I've watched them now that they're both, I think, on HBO or wherever they're available online.
Mhm.
I've now caught up with you, and it's award season. So it feels like a really good time to talk
Yeah.
about those films
Yeah.
because both are big time award contenders. The Critics' Choice Awards just happened. So we could talk when we get to that. But my sneak peek will be I think Sinners is going to continue to be robbed because people like white people telling black people stories.
Mhm.
Do you have a takeaway before we? That's my little teaser.
No, I agree. I agree. And I have controversial, I don't say controversial, but maybe disagreeable opinions about one battle after another.
I am so excited to have that conversation. I've been dying since I saw it. I texted you. I was like, I finally saw it. I can't wait to talk. So I'm definitely interested to talk. So we'll be talking about that next week. And everyone have a wonderful, well, let's just all
Happy New
try to
Year.
survive. Yeah, let's survive 2020.
Surviving community.
Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.